Hi, this is Sapa TV. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, the folks in the town hall, I think you need to turn on your audio system, please.
Is that better, Asa?
There it is. Thank you.
You're welcome. Minor detail.
Are we the only select board members here, Heather? Julie?
I'm not sure.
Can you not see the room?
Nope. Maybe I can put it on here. I just see who's here, and
There you go.
oh, there you go. Perfect.
Hey, Heather. Hi, Lee.
Hello? Good, how are you? Good.
Hi, Les. Hey, Scott.
Picture one dead again. It just goes to select board meeting November 4th, no camera.
All right. SAPA runs the camera, so it just might be something that they're working on, Heather.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
6 o'clock.
Cameras are on, so.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's 6. You can start it.
It's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. like to welcome everyone to our November 4th Select Board meeting. Amy, you have everybody's name then? Everybody's on there? Yeah. All right, the first item on our agenda is to approve our minutes from our October 21st, 2020 Select Board meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Is that you, Lee? Is there a second?
I second it.
Lee Gustafson's the motion. Lee Dakin's the second. Any corrections, changes, omissions, errors? Anybody got anything on the minutes?
I have none.
Thank you.
Heather, you're okay with them?
She wasn't here.
Yes, and I wasn't there, so I have no comment from that perspective. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Next item on our agenda is citizens' comments. If there was someone here that would like to address the Select Board regarding an issue that is not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. And that's citizens' comments for people here or who are with us through Zoom. All right, no citizens' comments, no answers from previous meeting? Anything? No? Next item on the agenda is old business. Julie, can you take us through that, please?
Just a couple items to update on the public safety building. As if you drive by, you can see a lot of concrete being poured. Walls are going in, side and front probably are going to be poured tomorrow. May be done by the end of the week. Next step, of course, is the steel frame, which is scheduled, last I knew, was scheduled to start mid-next week. Hoping that the steel structure will be up late November is the goal. And right now we are on track. The other item is speed studies. As I let you know, due to the cold nights, warm days, regional planning can't put their strips out on Andover Road. They broke one of them on River Street. They get too brittle when they freeze at night, apparently. So Chief Cloud is going to be working on trying to get some repairs, finagling repairs to the portable radar sign so we can get that out there on Andover Road. So we are working on it. It's out there now. It's out there now.
Our old speed sign is out there?
Where did we put it this time?
Just before Planet Road.
Okay.
So it's facing back towards,
Okay. Okay.
All right, great. So we're going to have that up for a couple of weeks, I imagine?
That's
Or
the
just
that's
to
the
get-
hope. As long
Well, if it lasts a couple of weeks?
we'll try to gather it in increments and do the best we can. Yep. We have 3 days data already. So if we can get another 3 or 4 days, that would be, it'll give us a good week.
All right, great. Anything else on old business?
Not really. Negotiations have started between Jim Goss and the attorney for the Natural Resources Board on the gravel pit. I have a meeting, I think you're a part of that meeting tomorrow, teleconference with Jim Goss for an update. So I'll have more to report hopefully for the next meeting.
Okay. I had a question from a citizen on Hall Road. When does that work plan on being done?
What road? Hall
Hall,
Road?
yeah.
It would not be till 2021.
Next year?
Yes. Yeah.
Sometime during the spring,
It
summer,
would be
whatever?
probably late spring, early summer.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Does any board member have any old business?
I have none.
Lee, Heather? Anything on old business?
Not at this time.
No? All right.
Thank you again, though. The comments with our packet are very, very helpful.
Good. You're welcome.
The next issue on our agenda is our policing policies update. We've talked about this in the past before. I know the state has a lot going on with this in regards to the use of force is a big item that's in front of the legislative right now, or was, and they adopted a new law, and I forget which number it is and stuff, regarding the use of force. And we've had discussions about a lot of what has been going on in our country and our state and regarding the policies that we had. And we had a lot of interest in just going over these issues just to make sure that we were on board with what was happening. And we have a little review on this today, and also a little bit on citizens' complaint form and how it works in Chester. So Julie, would you like to help us out? I know, Chief, you're here to
Yep.
help address this, but is there some other information that
Well, I can share what I put in your memo, which
Sure.
is the legislature did some work on the use of force policy statewide. The governor did not adopt, nor did they veto the bill, is my understanding from the league. And they're anticipating to try to negotiate, or I don't know if negotiate's the right term, but to try to work through the language in that policy within the legislature, and I believe the Police Chiefs Association, when the legislature goes back into session in January. So that is kind of on hold for right now. That is a state document that will apply to all police departments across the state when it is adopted. The thing that the issue that Chester specifically has had in the past is, a not really sufficient complaint form process in town. So this is another policy, the internal affairs policy, that the state is working on as well. And in speaking with Rick, there is I included in your packet the draft policy that they have worked through, a copy of Burlington's complaint form that they use, that is being used or referenced as a model for this state. And there is a trifold flyer that is kind of a reference for people to use that would guide them through the complaint process. Again, that is a document that's being that the state is referencing for their adoption as well. We are kind of, in speaking with Rick about it, feeling like it's far enough along that those documents are something that perhaps Chester could go ahead and adopt for ourselves. Get that issue that we've had resolved, and if there are major changes that come down from the state next year, then we can readopt and incorporate those changes as well. But it would get us a process. We don't really have a good one right now, and it would resolve that issue for us immediately. And I think anything else I'm going to direct to Rick.
Well, Rick, what are your thoughts about the citizens' complaint form and the process there, that part of it, but then afterwards about the legislative action that's coming through?
Through the legislative backing, it's going to be, as we talked before, when somebody has a complaint.
Rick?
Oh, Rick, you got to go to the mic.
Do you mind going to the,
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks, Heather.
Yep.
I can do that. It's a little bit longer. In the past, we talked about there was a complaint that was filed against a police officer or the police department or anything. It was always handled in-house. With the new policy with the state of Vermont, what's going to happen is it's going to be handled in-house, but the whole part of the investigation is going to be sent on to a committee to look at to make sure that the policies or the procedures have been followed by the state. So if there's one officer that's been in trouble at one department, he can't move to another one, to another one, to another one. It's going to be documented through the state so that it travels with them, so it's a statewide thing. If there's a complainer against the police chief, it's not handled in-house, it automatically goes off so it can't be covered up or anything. It's all sent to the state.
Would that type of information follow a police officer that was seeking employment somewhere else? So they would look at the state data bank to see what was in there, and that would show up?
I'm not sure if it would be like in a state data bank, but it would be open to all the police departments. So it's going to follow them. It's not going to be like, you could go to California and be a police officer there and all of a sudden jump to Vermont or somewhere else. It's going to follow you along. Yep. So that password, you know, the police chief did the whole internal investigation, and it was a minor infraction, and you got 2 days off or whatever for something major, it's going to be dealt with at the police academy level through the Vermont Training Council. So it's not going to be more, it's going to be much more open to the public, to the view, so it's not going to be, and it's not covered up, but it's going to be more open to what people can see.
More transparency in the
Yeah.
process and what's going on there.
Correct.
So are you happy with the forms that from the South? Are you familiar with the South Burlington forms and how
Yeah.
all that works and what's going on there?
Trevor Whipple was the South Burlington chief, and now he's working as a liaison with the Vermont police, Vermont chiefs, and through Vermont Leagues and Cities and Towns. So a lot of the stuff that he did, you know, he's working with us to make sure we're developing that, because a lot of our small towns, like myself, I mean, we had a very busy last 2 weeks where I've been busy with a lot of things. And when you talk to Vermont Leagues and Cities and Towns, and they're like, well, we need to get this done, we got to do this. Well, like when you talk to Trevor when he was South Burlington chief, he had 3 officers that were just assigned to policies and procedures to keep them updated. So by now having Vermont Leagues and Cities and Towns, having somebody that's helping us and working with us and developing up through the Vermont Leagues and Cities and Towns, it's really keeping us up to date so we're not falling behind.
It seems pretty well explained as far as the procedure on how to do it, what you go through, and all the steps that are involved in there. So it's good to have that information out there, I think.
Correct.
Because when you read this and you go through it, you know exactly the procedure, you know exactly the steps that are going to be taken, you know everything that's going to be out there. And I think it helps on both sides.
Correct.
In case something, you know, if there is something to it or however it works.
And those two, the trifold and the complaint process, we should have that by the end of November. We should have that up and running. And it will be on the town's website so that they can pull the forms off there and read it or whatever.
What happens if the complaint's against you? Because, I mean, if you're the one that's going to be doing the investigation or most of the time, or...
Right, so if it's against the chief, it automatically goes to the training council, and then is handled at that level. So I would assume from all these in cities and towns, or somebody will appoint somebody to investigate it or something, or it will go to the state police or something. So it automatically, if the chief is involved, it automatically will go right directly up.
So we're going to start using this at this time?
Well, what I'd like, what I'd like to do, we just wanted to present it at this point. This needs to be drafted with referencing Chester.
More specific to Chester.
And so the thought was, Rick and I had talked, we are comfortable with this policy for Chester, and if you want to move ahead, I will go ahead and transpose this to be more Chester specific, and we'll bring it to another meeting for official adoption.
So any questions or concerns or comments from any of the board members?
Well, that was one question I had, and I think Julie's memo stated that before. I read through the Vermont League of Cities and Towns information that we were given. And so we already, do we have, but I won't say we already have, do we have a specific procedure and policy manual for our public safety department?
Yes.
Great. So that can be used, Julie, to, pull out of here, working with the chief cloud and to do the things that are recommended and make it maybe clearer. I haven't read the manual, so I don't know. But, yeah, good, excellent.
We're only talking one specific part of that. I mean,
Right.
that's quite lengthy. The policy procedures is quite lengthy on everything. This is just, we're talking about just the internal affairs, complaints on officers at this point.
Lee, because there are other pieces of that are being reviewed at the state level, that are going to be, that are going to be mandated for all departments. So as those pieces get adopted at the state level, they will kind of switch out what's in our current policy. Does that make sense?
So I have a question about the draft state policy, and that is, it seems like there's some discussion going on about things that work or don't work or whatever. How much say do we have in that? And Rick, are you involved in that at all? Or I don't want to add anything else to your plate, but on the other hand, I'd like us to have some input.
There is the Vermont Police Association and the Vermont Chiefs of Police and the Training Council are all involved in that. So I am not on one of those committees, but I'm fed the information every day of what's happening. So
Okay. So do you feel that the policy, the things that we've discussed that we're adopting for Chester are a good fit for Chester, number one? Number two, is there anything specific relative to the draft legislation at the state level that you're concerned about?
I mean, there's definitely some stuff, if you read, I think Julie put it out, the 10 mandates or 10
Yes.
policies they're trying to change. Some of those things, I mean, like, they're trying to get the police officers out of the school, no longer have a resource officer. Some of those things that Chester has done for years since I've been here, and I think it's a very positive thing. I don't think it's a negative thing, so.
Yeah, and when I read through that, some of those jumped out at me as well, and it just concerned me that it wasn't clear to me if that was going to be mandated or recommended, or we had the ability
Right,
to
and
choose
that's-
for ourselves, for our own community, what we
We
want.
definitely are able to choose for ourselves, and we are definitely pushing some of that thing at the Chief of Police Association level. And that's why, hopefully, when legislation comes back in January, some of that stuff will get, some of our opinions will be added.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because it's basically a work in progress, and this bill that we have here that was crafted or drafted in last September, a couple months ago, is just that. This is just a draft. So it is the beginnings of the work in progress, and I think our voices are important.
That bill was passed, and it takes
it was.
effect in July, and that's why we are trying to change some of that it's in there. And that's why the governor did not sign it.
What parts of it?
Yes, I understood that. Okay, great.
Chief, what parts of it do you have concern with as far as, now we're not talking about the citizens complaint part, now we're going to the new
Use of force.
legislative action that's going to be happening.
Some of the things in the use of force that they really tied the hands of the police officers. And I think they really jumped to conclusions really fast. And some of those things, when we had people testifying at the committees, they really didn't listen to. And hopefully in January, when those people come back to testify again, they can listen to some of them. So, I mean, some of the things like use of force, and it's automatic mandated that if you use a chokehold or you do something, there's a $10,000 fine, and there's automatically different things that are associated with that. But they're not always familiar with what happens with law enforcement, where if an officer has multiple people on him and they're fighting for his life, what he can use and what he can't use. So some of that thing where our use of force people that are testifying are trying to change some of that stuff.
So Rick, when you're saying we're trying to change it, do you mean your association or do you mean Chester? How are you being represented?
It's through the association, through the Vermont Police Association and the Vermont Chiefs of Police, because it's a state,
Okay.
it's a state law.
Okay, and I think that tweaking things is really good. My comment is, I think it's in some ways unrealistic for a town of our size to, have one or two officers just looking at policy. So I'm feeling that it's a good thing that we have the state and the league to help guide us in how to keep our policies active, not just these, but all of these types of policies. So I'm appreciative of them too.
And I understand what you said, this is the bill and it has been, but enforcement will not begin until September of 21, which gives you and all the other people who are involved in it the time to sort through and fine tune.
Correct.
To do what's best.
Hey,
When I
Rick,
was-
how's morale in the force relative to this?
I would say it's pretty good right now, because they're still open and discussing it.
Okay.
When I read through a lot of this bill and stuff, a lot of the times the phrase comes up, totality of circumstances. And that's like a catch-all. That,
Totally.
And how are you going to explain that or try to understand that unless you're involved in that? Because the totality of circumstances is everything that's happening at the same time from all different directions. And it just, I know their intentions are well meant.
Yes.
You know, to protect the police officer and protect the public. But it's an extremely tough job. When you get into situations where you're there and, you know, there might be mental health issues, there might be other issues, so you have to act like a social worker and in an instant change to protect someone's life somehow. To do that, and that's their totality of circumstances, it's an extremely difficult job. And I appreciate the fact of what the police officers do in this state and in this country as far as they're you know, related to their job. Because it's not an easy job, and it's a lot easier to sit back and second guess everything after everything's spelled out. That being said, I'm glad that they're working at something to get a better understanding and a better guidelines for people to follow so they realize what's happening and what's going on in the profession. Because it's getting harder and harder to get people to enter that profession, to stay in it, because it is so demanding and so hard.
It is, and I appreciate that. And if you look at the State of Vermont website through the chiefs of police, where people that are, each department that are looking for police officers, we are very fortunate in Chester that most of the time when we have a position open, we're able to fill it rather quickly. There's a lot of positions in neighbor, you know, like Springfield. I'm not sure how many they're down now, but 5 or 6, 7.
That many.
So the guys are working, you know, tons of hours, but I don't know of any town locally that is not full, except for us right now. I mean, Ludlow was looking for one. Hartford we're down like 7 or 8. Bellows Falls was down to 3 or 4. I mean, so it's everywhere. It's nationwide. Everybody is looking for officers, and it's not going to be easy to fill.
So how do you change something like that? How do you get people more interested in that profession?
I'm not sure right now.
Arnie, I brought this up when we were talking about town personnel policies, when, in the complaint thing also, but this is more specific to police officers, but there's nothing in here that gives the town personnel a recourse when there's false claims against them. There's nothing in there. And I mean, it even says procedures for complaints. They can do it anonymously, in person, by telephone, by letter, by email. It used to be, and then correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, if you came in to make a complaint, you had to fill out a statement form, and it had to be notarized. So it was a legal document that you were swearing that what you were saying is true. Now that's not required. So anybody can initiate an investigation on an officer, and they have to live through the investigation, keeping their mouths shut until it's adjudicated or figured out by the sergeant, chief, or an outside party. And after it's finished, if they're exonerated, there's no recourse for people that are making false statements. And I think that needs to be addressed. You're talking about having, trying to get officers into a profession. If you're not gonna help protect them, you're not gonna get them in there. If they're messing up, that's one thing. But if they're doing their job the way they are following procedures, the way they're taught, then they need to be some way to protect them.
When I read the information from the league, I thought, Jeff, that there were some good points made about how a complaint was studied and looked at. And I was thinking that, you know, this league information, plus the bill or the law that was passed, I assume they're still going to be working on it in September, are the ways that that voice of you can be heard, and then things can be discussed and changed.
My point is that even if there's no basis for it, they can initiate an investigation, and if it's proven, if they're exonerated, there's no recourse for the officer or the employee for that matter.
The exoneration is a statement of innocence. I mean, a statement that
Okay.
everything was followed all right. I mean, that happens in the private sector also. People get investigated, but nothing happens and stuff. I mean, it's a little different when you're a police officer, and I understand what you're saying, but there has to be a procedure to get to the point where you could say, hey, everything's okay. Because if you don't even have that procedure, then all that innuendo and all that stuff just stays in the background, and it never comes out exactly what the story is. So I think it kind of helps both ways.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but I think the point you're trying to make is that somebody can make a complaint that's not notarized, or there's no force behind it saying, yes, this is the truth. I am telling the truth in this particular complaint. And if you look at how you can make these complaints by email or phone or whatever, yeah, there is no legal weight to that complaint, because somebody could say, oh, that's not what I meant, or I said, or it's a typo, whatever. So I think, Jeff, is that correct? Is that the point you're trying to make?
That's it. And in my understanding, unless I'm not a lawyer, but in the court of law, you have the right to face your accuser. And this way does not necessarily allow that.
And it does, because once there's an investigation, that person is going to be brought in for an interview, and then that statement is going to be documented. And then through the process, through the hearing, whether it's the select board or whoever does the hearing, that part is going to be, so both parties are going to be actually listen to what, you know, the board is going to be the judicial board to say if they're yes or no. So that's where, when it gets to that level, is when it's going to be, you get to address your accuser.
I mean, we're all trying to get to a point that we have a process that's fair to everybody involved. And if there's some things that could be tweaked one way or another, then hopefully we could look at them to see what works or what doesn't work. Because the fairness and the transparency should be on both sides for everybody.
I agree.
And your point about when I was reading through it, the anonymous one, and that's the one that got me. Okay, well, if it's anonymous, I wouldn't take that much weight to it if I was the one that was going to be investigating, unless it was something extremely serious, and then it's either going to be dismissed as BS or you go from there. But the process...
Well, and is that to have an avenue for, and I certainly think that you don't want to have a bunch of people just calling up anonymously making, you know, severe accusations. But I also think that that language, and I'm not a lawyer either, but it's also in there to protect victims. And, you know, so I think that that's important. So it'll be interesting to see. And maybe, Jeff, you can give your feedback, and we can all keep in touch with what's happening in the legislature with this. But we do want to protect victims too.
Oh, definitely. And that's what a law enforcement officer wants to do.
So, Jeff, it's tough to sit at the table here as a select person and a police officer. I just, you know.
No, I just want...
It's hard. I mean, you're in the middle of both things.
Right. You know, I just think everything should be covered, and that's my intent.
Why don't I have a conversation with Jim Carroll? I mean, you're not adopting this tonight anyways, so I can have a conversation with Jim. There may already be recourse opportunities available within statute as it is.
There is.
I'm sure there is. So why don't I have a conversation with Jim? We can identify those and, you know, maybe come up with some language that could be added for the officer's benefit as well.
Well, just...
But this is Heather again. I just really feel like we should expedite this, because it's my understanding that the one we have hasn't been sufficient. So although this may not be perfect, you know, the adopting the Burlington one, it's a good start. So I appreciate Julie and Rick that we're moving forward with this.
Yeah, I do too.
Sure.
I mean, ours is very efficient and it's covered by what needs to be covered, but it's done as a voluntary statement. The person has to come in and do a sworn statement. This just goes one more step where they can do other complaints, that's all.
Well, and with this one, it's a little, there's more words.
Yeah.
So it's
Yes,
a
there
little
is.
clearer for people to follow, and there's an actual form, because that was an issue. We didn't, what form do we use? And this just kind of fine tunes that process.
Absolutely, but there is one in place that people.
Yes,
use
it's not
right
like we
now.
don't
Yeah,
have one,
right,
correct.
It's not brand new, but we're
Right.
just trying to
Correct.
But
tweak
it
it.
has needed, I think we've all agreed
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
needed some revision. So I'm super happy that we have something that's reflecting a revision of some sort.
I agree with you, Heather, and it seems like Julie's going to talk to the town attorney and tweak these documents to be more Chester-specific, and then once we get them finalized, they would come back to us for adoption.
Yes.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments or concerns?
I have one. I have some.
Hold on. I'm sorry, who was that?
Hi, it's Marilyn McCuskey. And just thank you, Julie. I wanted to say thank you.
Up a little bit, Marilyn?
Can you not hear me? Yes, I'll move closer to the mic. Can you hear me better now, Arnie?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so sorry about that. I wanted to thank Julie for sending me an email about this. I had sent her an email in September after seeing an article in the Digger about the policies that the League of Cities and Towns had adopted regarding police reform. And it was recommending that an adoption of the 21st century policing policies. And there was a link to it in the article. And so my question, I have a question and then I have a comment, but my question was, has the town looked at those policies? Or have the police done that? And then what kind of thoughts or, what observations do you have about those adopting the 21st century policing policies?
I myself haven't heard of those 21st century policing policies. Chief, are you aware of any of that?
Yeah, there was some new ones on fair and impartial policing. There's several that we had to adopt and we had to take training on and stuff to update all the officers. So we've been doing that right along.
So you've been involved in that, what she's speaking to, and there's been training going on regarding that?
Yes.
Does that answer your question, Marilyn?
Yeah, thank you. And I'd be happy to share the link that I have, Arnie, for that in case people want to review it. And this really kind of goes to my comment, which is, I think it's really important when we talk about policing that we separate personnel from the policies. So, and I think about that when I do the work that I'm doing on school resource officers. So, Chief, I thought it was interesting to hear your comment. I have worked in my professional life, and also I feel very strongly about police in schools. I have my personal opinion is that I think that there can be significant harm to students, particularly students with disabilities and students of color, and it's been well documented in terms of evidence-based studies, which I'm happy to share. I had actually co-authored a letter that I sent to school board chairs and superintendents in June relative to this issue. And one of the things that has come out of that is when we talk about these issues, I think it's really important to sort of separate the fact that we can have really good people in these positions and really good police officers, but that doesn't mean that we don't need as a community to continue to evaluate and assess and be transparent, because that's how we continue to improve. So my being here today is in no way, shape, or form a criticism of the police. Knock on wood, I've had very few interactions with our police over the years, except for positive ones, smiling and saying hello. The one or two times that I have had occasion to call, I've been very pleased and feel as though our our police are responsive. So I'm not weighing in because I want to criticize, but I do think that this is a moment in our state and in our community and our country to be looking at these issues. So I appreciate that you are all having these conversations. I hope that you'll continue to have these conversations, and I'd be happy to share the 21st century information with the board. And there was some other good information that was, I believe, embedded in that link. So I'd be happy to share that. So I just want to, I hope that you'll continue to have these conversations so that we can continue to have a good police force that's responsive to the needs of our community.
Thank you, Marilyn. If you want, you can get those links or that information to Julie, and she can include it in our package at for our next meeting as a resource for the board. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Leslie, would you like to come up to the microphone? Hold on a second, Leslie, before you get here. You got to get to the microphone.
No, I don't want to be on the microphone.
Why not?
Well, because COVID-19. Sorry to say, but following the microphone after someone else has been talking into it. So I asked specifically.
Well, hang it a second. Let me just figure something out.
Nobody will be able to hear you on that. So that's the problem.
You'll lose half our audience and two of our board members also. Hold on.
Okay. I can get another mic. Yep, perfect. Perfect, perfect.
Thank you, I appreciate that. You're welcome. I'm a nurse, and I'm there at 95 all day long, and I'm not about to spread or receive germs. Greetings, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Leslie, this is regarding the two policies that we've been speaking to?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'd like to say that we're talking about parallel issues here. When we say the word complaint, a complaint is not something that, unless it's listed in the state constitution as unprofessional conduct or police misconduct, then it doesn't seem that that complaint would go anywhere. Because what is your benchmark? If I have a complaint about a particular behavior from a particular police officer of this town, and it is not in the A, B, or C listing in the Constitution, and the paper that was sent out from Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns also classified in their A, felony, B, misdemeanor, C, something like any of these committed on duty or off duty. In my opinion, that's not what we should be talking about in terms of how we can have a town that can understand what the police are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. So I was reading in some of the minutes about a traffic report. If someone complains about the way they're treated when they're pulled over, that doesn't seem to rise to the level of a police complaint because it's a traffic stop. So speaking to Heather, having clear policies and procedures of what you're supposed to do when you're, for example, serving a subpoena to someone. You know, our state provides for who can serve a subpoena, but it doesn't say how that person can serve a subpoena. So if I make a complaint about any of these things that are not in A, B, or C conduct, that's not going to rise up to the level of being reported to the council because it has to be in these other categories. So I'm glad we're talking about policing in this town, but I think we have to understand the law. A complaint that I perceive as a citizen as a wrongful, unprofessional behavior, if it's not A, B, or C, then that's not going to be a complaint that has any sort of repercussion. So that is one of my main things to say here tonight, that we need to have policies and procedures when you pull someone over. Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm so-and-so. You know, so then when I complain about the traffic stop, I can say he didn't introduce himself, he or she, excuse me, et cetera. So we need to have spelled out rules here that the police department needs to be accountable for. And I think that that complaint form is a step in the right direction. It's obviously not large enough for probably most complaints. I don't understand why it can't be electronic. I would have some concern about the complaint being lost if it was not in some way admitted. You know, I've had a situation where I sent the previous town manager a letter that was intended for the select board that they never received because he intercepted it. So there's a lot of things here that need to be spelled out. If you look at other websites like the Springfield Police or the Hartford Police, they have an entire website, has a complaint form, it has the procedures, it's not a flyer. It's like I'm sitting at home, hey, what can I do? I can click on the computer and I can see the actual policies and procedures and the complaint form, how it's going to be conducted. So to sum this up, a complaint and police misconduct are two different things. Unprofessional conduct and a complaint are two different things. So as a town, if we want to get along here, I think everything should be spelled out in policies and procedures. Subpoena delivery, knock on the door, no one answers, leave. Call the house first. How can you judge the behavior of a police officer if it's not written down? And does anyone have any questions or comments on this? Or, I mean, you know, it has to be a valid investigation and you have to have these specific A, B, or C police misconduct. So, and that's at the state level.
Leslie, this is Heather. Thank you for coming. Chief, is there a way of, since we're revising the form, is there a way to include some of what Leslie has said? And do we have our policing policies and procedures online? I don't think we do.
Well, this is the start. I mean, when you adopt these things, we would be putting them online. I mean, this is kind of the transition. I can't put something online that hasn't been adopted yet.
Right.
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Right. I'm happy to. Would you say Springfield and who?
And the Hartford Police
Hartford,
Department.
okay. Yep. I will go onto Springfield and Hartford's websites. Was their police department websites?
Yes, well,
And
they have their
see what they've
complaint
got.
form, and they have who conducts the complaint, when the person will hear back. The other, it's not just concerning this, but let's say you're doing a welfare check on someone. Don't the police have a proper protocol for what they do? I mean, like, I'm a nurse, and I do things by the policy. So if I do something wrong and a patient gets a bladder infection because I didn't wash my hands or I didn't do the proper cleansing, it's evidence-based. Look, you did this wrong, the patient got that. You know, how can we have police in this town if you really don't have policies and procedures, how you conduct yourself in different situations?
I think there are quite a few policies and procedures that the police has to work by. A lot of it's state governed, a lot of it could be our local policies and stuff. This is our first step that we're taking in this direction. We're a small town. We don't have a lot of resources to do a lot of things that the bigger towns do. We're trying to take a step in the right direction. We're trying to do the right thing. And I appreciate your comments and your concerns, and we'll try to incorporate some of those into some of the items that might be coming up in the future.
Well, I just can't imagine that a police officer couldn't write down what they do. What do you do on a normal, like when you pull someone over, what is the first proper thing that you do?
Well, the first thing is there is never a normal motor vehicle stop. Every single one is different.
That means you can behave differently on each stop.
Which comes down to one of the statements that I see in all these documents the totality of circumstances.
Right, so-
And you're never going to sit down and be able to outline exactly what procedure is for exactly every procedure, everything that might happen in your life. And that's true of nursing, policing, or whatever. You have general guidelines, you have general outcomes that you're striving for, you try to be fair, you try to do it right, and you try to uphold the law.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to do.
Right, well, let's look
And I
at
appreciate the
subpoenas.
comments
Let's look
and
at,
stuff,
if
but-
the police department is delivering subpoenas to the people of this town, don't you think there ought to be a policy on how they conduct themselves?
We could put a policy on how long your lunch break should be and how much you should have for supper.
Well,
and
how
stuff,
am I
too.
gonna have a valid complaint?
We are trying to improve our relationship with the police department and the community. We're trying to get there. We're trying to do that.
So let me look at what Springfield and Hartford have on their website for procedures. I will go over that with Rick. It's the complaint process. Yeah, exactly.
Right, but the point is, once the complaint is made, it just becomes whether it's an A, B, or C offense. Otherwise, the complaint carries no weight because it doesn't fall into those 3 offenses. I've got it right here. And the other thing I would like to add is that I think the state constitution provides for a civilian review board, and it provides for review of officer discipline by civilians. And if you look at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, the people on that public safety committee are all sheriffs. About 8 or 9 of them are sheriffs, a couple of them are town managers. I was reading the language of that packet that you sent me. That company is also there, all representing law enforcement. Who is representing the citizen? Who is standing up for the citizen? If we don't fall into this neat little, what I'm saying is a complaint's going to go nowhere.
I understand what you're saying, and I've said, I think 4 times now, that I will check with Springfield and Hartford and see what they have online. I'm not going to answer questions about something I can't answer, so I'm not going to bury myself. I will do some research, and I will get back to the board and speak with our chief of police.
Any more comments? All set?
I'm actually not all set, because I think if we don't have policies and procedures that the police have to follow, then there's no way you can determine if a wrongdoing occurred.
So I have a question for you. What are you asking us to do right now?
I'm asking you to please ask the police department to write down policies and procedures for what they do. And how are you going to say they did something wrong if they don't have any written instruction on what they're supposed to do?
Okay, thank you.
That's more procedure than policy. I'll look. I'll see what Springfield and Hartford have.
Any more comments?
Julie?
Yes.
Hi, it's Marilyn again. I just wondered if there might be some best practices in the 21st century policing guidance to address some of those concerns. So that might be another reason to kind of take a look at that, which I will go ahead and make sure you get that. But okay, share that with you.
Best practices, it's a procedures, it's not a policy issue at this point. That's a procedures issue, which is completely different. So yes, if you could send me that, I will look at it with Rick.
Thanks, Julie.
I will.
Yep.
Sure.
Thanks for your time, Chief, on that. Next item on our agenda is a general fund budget review for the fire and the ambulance. Well, I guess you got to stay for a little while longer, Chief. Police and communications. Julie, can you take us through that, please?
I can. All right, hang on here. So tonight you're going to look at Division of Public Safety, which is fire, police, ambulance, and communications. All 3 of those department heads are here. We have gone through each of their budgets, looked at, needs, tried to whittle down costs to keep things relatively moderate. There are some needs in various departments. I will let the department heads speak to their specific needs. But again, this is kind of the first round. All of these budgets were prepared zero base, not based off of last year's budget. So everything has been looked through pretty carefully. But I don't know who you want to start with.
Go page by page, I guess, no?
You want to start with,
Account, communications, that was the
you want to
top
start
one
with
on there.
communications? All right.
Yeah. And I realize that the actual is 3/4 of a year, correct? So
The actual that you're looking at is through
Till September
September 30th. Yep.
So
Yep.
that's why those numbers are going to be a lot different than the budget anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But one of them that, on that first page that stood out to me was dispatching. What changed on there? I know there's a memo on the side that says
Correct.
Hartford Fire, Scuttney, and all that.
So right now, we do not pay, the police department does not pay for dispatching. It is done through the state police. The state police has said, beginning 2021, that they are no longer providing that service for free. Each town that they dispatch for will be charged. And it's quite astronomical. In 2021, they are hitting us with $14,766 for the year. In 2022, it more than doubles, and then more than doubles every year from after that. It's not going to be a feasible thing for us to stay with state police. We're kind of behind the 8 ball right now in trying to find somebody to dispatch for us for PD. Springfield is not offering that service, so Rick is going to be talking to Hartford. I don't know if he's heard from them. Hartford currently dispatches for fire. But right now, we can go with state police for this cost for 1 more year. It'll give us an opportunity to really do some research and figure out what we're going to do going forward.
I mean, the first year doesn't seem too bad with the 14,000.
Yeah, but 22.
Even the 28, that starts getting up there, but why?
They want to get out of the dispatching business, so that's what they're doing.
And Springfield isn't interested in taking us on, even if there was some monetary incentive with that?
Correct. I met with both Hartford and Springfield's chief before, back last November, December, before the.
Rick,
Yeah. Can't hear.
sorry, I want to.
No, Heather, thank you. Thank you for reminding us.
She just, I can do.
This came out after a study that the state police, when they went to the 2 PSAPs, it was pretty much they decided that they need to eliminate all the small towns that they're dispatching for. So there's been a study committee, they've looked at this, and this has been in the works for a couple of years, and this is the price that they have come up with. There is some more public hearings that are still involved in this, but this is the prices that they have come up with so that they can get out of the dispatch business. They would like to dispatch only for their state agencies, and that's it. So I have met with Hartford, I met with Springfield. Springfield just got back to me last week that they're declining. They're not interested. To take us on, they thought they would have to put on another full-time dispatcher. So their costs would go up quite a bit, and so it would be uneventful for us. It would cost too much.
They thought it would be cost prohibitive because they would have to take on another dispatcher?
Correct. In order for them to dispatch for us, they felt that as busy as they are right now, they would have to employ another full-time dispatcher. So at sometimes they only have 1 dispatcher on. They figured that they would have to have 2 at all times. So in order for that to happen, they're not interested. I've met with Hartford, and Hartford has not got back to me with the price yet. So.
Have we given feedback to the state police?
Yes, we have, and I mean they're at a point where they just do not want to dispatch for other people other than state agencies. So.
Well, right, but I mean, we're a small town and we're a small state, and can they just say, oh, we don't want to do this?
Apparently.
Well, they're not.
They're just going to charge us on. Yeah.
Tom Bach, I don't know who we should give feedback to, but Julie, could you investigate who we should give feedback to about this and say that we aren't happy?
There's a lot of towns. I mean, they dispatch for police, fire, ambulance. They dispatch a lot of towns. It's not just us. So
The state.
The state does, and I'm not sure the actual number. But at these public hearings, I mean, I'm sure there's actual numbers of how many agencies they dispatch for. But
In the new barracks there in,
Westminster.
yeah, there's anywhere 2 to 4 dispatchers in there taking calls and doing things.
There was. and they're reducing them number all the time. There used to be, until recently, there was always 2 that cover Westminster, which is, not sure what else, Westminster State Police, Chester, Weathersfield,
Dover.
Dover Sheriff's Department, all
Wilmington.
those, and now there's only 1 dispatcher. So they're getting busier and busier, and they're reducing their staff because of budget cuts, so.
It would seem like a regional answer to something like this would make a lot of sense.
And that's what they're looking, they would like towns and people to do is a regional dispatch center. And that's what Chittenden is looking at right now, and they'll probably be one of the first ones, would be like Burlington, South Burlington, Winooski will all get together with a regional dispatch, but.
You know, it's easier up there to do it because of the scale, the size
Right.
of scale
And
they
that's-
have going for them.
And that's kind of what Hartford is doing right now. I mean, Hartford dispatches for several agencies. So, I mean, they took on all the Windsor PD, all the Windsor Fire and Ambulance when they shut down their dispatch center. So there's agencies out there. We just got to find the right one for the right fit.
So the state police are giving us a bump of 14,000, next year 28,000. It's a little nudge that we have to figure out an alternative to what we have now.
Correct.
Because we're pretty soon we're not going to be able to afford it.
Correct.
Right.
Right, but it seems, you know, if this is something that we really obviously need, and we're having a hard time finding it, it seems, and I don't know the exact funding, but we, the citizens, pay for the state police. And so now we're being asked as a town to pay for it in another way, and we're getting gouged. I mean, we're the taxpayers, and we're paying for the state police, and we're getting gouged. That's how I see it right now.
But right now, we're not paying for dispatching, and that's what they're saying, is you need to find regional dispatch because we just can't handle it.
And they're just going to price us out.
Correct.
I think the point that Heather was making was that we are paying as individual taxpayers.
Correct.
And from my perspective, you know, as little as I like the state to have control or input into my life, this is one of those instances like roads or whatever that they need to step up and do, because this is directly related to public safety. And if a town is not able to afford that level of payment for that service, then that's where the state needs to step in. And
Oh, sorry.
no, that's fine. I was done. Thank you.
Okay, well, and that's exactly what I'm saying, that, hey, wait a minute. You know, we need to put a little pushback or political power on, or political influence, talk to Tom Bach, talk to whoever we can about, you know, I know the state has budget issues, but we have budget issues. And there is, you know, this seems to me to be a real role for government and at the state level. So, okay, I've said enough. Thank you.
I will reach out to Tom.
I'm pretty sure you'll find that legislation is the one that's putting the push on.
I think they are.
Any other questions or concerns on the first page of the budget worksheet for communications? I see you're going to talk to AT&T.
Yes, I have a meeting with them tomorrow morning at 10. I received a email that through a company called FirstNet, which I have not heard of, but it is a branch or an affiliation with AT&T, who is who we have our stuff with now, that apparently for me, right now we're paying business rates, but apparently there is a municipal program in place. So I'm going to gather the information tomorrow. I need to talk to the guys about the communications piece once I have that information, to make sure we're not losing. It's pretty
service that we
strategic
need,
right
yeah.
now because we have to have coverage, you know, in all 4 corners of the town. So I'm going to gather information and hopefully that we can do something and lower that price.
We have coverage in all 4 corners of the town.
We do at this point, I think, between
find
radio
that hard
and
to believe.
phone. I think between radio, don't we?
I've been on some roads.
Between
Close, but yeah.
smoke share, okay, right.
Yeah,
Yep.
Popple Dungeon.
Popple Dungeon, yeah.
All right. I retract my statement.
It's sketchy.
I don't want to make it worse. So anyways, we've got some research to do on that. That number may drop.
Any other questions or concerns on that first page?
So Arnie, your page order is different than my page order, so
Okay.
just if you don't mind telling us what the budget was.
That was
That was
communication.
the communication sheet.
Yes, thank you. I figured that out.
The next page that I think we're looking at is the budget worksheet for the fire department. I don't know, do I have them in order, or does it make a
It
difference?
does, there wasn't really an order. They're not numbered or anything. It's just by department.
Yep. Yeah, so we're on the fire department.
So for fire, you will see some line items in here that you have not normally in the past. Workers' comp is a number that will be plugged in there. It's not in there yet, but workers' comp is a number that will be plugged in. Again, trying to break that down by department to try to get all departmental costs allocated. And more descriptions in here. Matt and I had some negotiations back and forth of fine-tuning some numbers, but I think this is kind of what he is anticipating are his needs for 2021. Again, the only other number that will go in is the capital transfer number once you have set the capital plan and we know what those contributions are going to be. That number will get plugged in. And Matt is here to answer questions.
Matt, what's your biggest concern or thought about this budget?
Well, so with our budget in the past, we were always asked, especially on the equipment line, is to try to keep it within that kind of general 3% increase every single year. So we had a baseline. And so what I've done since I've taken over was we go through and what do we have for equipment that's completely outdated, we need to replace before it breaks. What do we have that's broken? And then I try to have, out of that total number, a certain amount of money, which we've generally kept statistically about $5,000 of the unknowns of somebody stepped on a nail and it went through the boot, and boots cost us $400 a piece now. So, you know, unexpected, they ripped a glove, they lost their hood, we smashed a mask, you know, that type of stuff. So that was what Julie and I went to. When I put the officers together and our maintenance people together each year to come up with the list of stuff, it always comes out way more than what that 3% is going to be. So then we try to prioritize what do we absolutely have to replace this year, and what can we try to push out to the next year, and out of that, what could the engine company hopefully raise enough money to pay for, so we can still get it that year. So that's really the way it's set up. The equipment maintenance, the vehicle maintenance, I guess is the one that sticks out. We have a couple pieces of equipment that are getting older and they're costing us more money every single year. The rescue truck the last few years has cost us a lot. I'm hoping we're at a point now that maybe it's going to stabilize and we might finally get a good year. I mean, 2 years ago, the rescue truck, I think it was January 6th, we spent the entire year's vehicle maintenance budget on that truck. We had nothing left for the rest of the year. So some of the other.
Now, here it comes.
Can you guys hear us now?
Yes.
All right. I do not know what happened. We lost the router.
So what'd you do, just reboot it?
I just rebooted it. We
Yeah.
lost the hard line, but we were all still connected.
On the Wi-Fi.
From Wi-Fi. It's usually the other way around.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So we didn't talk anymore after we figured that out, so.
I think the last question we had was COVID and this year and procedures that you
You
were
had
talking
asked
about.
if there was different procedures for the fire, and yes, there is, but it really is call dependent. So, so something for a major emergency, like we had a structure fire the other day, the kind of COVID stuff goes out the window at that point in time, and life and property comes first, and we deal with it afterwards. But if we get called, well, for instance, a couple weeks ago, we went and attempted to get a cat out of a tree. When we went to go get the cat out of the tree, then yes, we're 100% fully protected, and we try to do the social distancing as much as we can, masks on and things like that. And then same with the ambulance dispatch, does a questionnaire form anytime before they're dispatching us, and they notify us that it's negative COVID on the questionnaire before you go anywhere. As far as protections, we definitely don't have as much protection as the ambulance does. Ours really is masks and sanitizer. We did add in, which has already been purchased this year, so we won't have to purchase it again. They're basically a snap-in regulator that goes into our current SCBA mask. So if we have to deal with anything COVID related, We don't have to be on air the entire time. They're called P100 filters that go onto it. But that actually worked out well. That's actually something multi-purpose that we can utilize for other calls. So yes, we were kind of forced into getting it because of COVID, but we're going to get to use it for other things as well. So yes, to answer your question, we have COVID policies we have to follow.
Thank you. I have a question. I should have looked this up beforehand, but what was the total budget for 2020?
Because we're doing 0-0 base, sorry, not.
No, I'm sorry, for the fire department.
I was going to say my budget was not that much.
Matt, calm down.
Yeah, sorry.
I feel
Jeff's got his town report.
According to this, it says 185,
Okay.
but that, I don't think that has the capital.
I would say that I think that was capital transfer as well.
85.
So this doesn't have a capital transfer in it?
No.
Correct. So,
No.
okay.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and this is Heather, one thing that could be helpful on the worksheet is to have what was budgeted in 2021. What did we and the voters approve? And maybe not, do you think that would be helpful to other board members? Is that just me?
So you need to decide if you're going to do a zero-based budget. If you're going to do a zero-based budget process, you're not supposed to be looking at the previous year's budget. And it's up to you guys. I mean, if you, at this point, the department heads have looked at things from a zero base. So if you guys say, okay, I trust you guys have looked at it from zero base, I just want to see it compared to 2020 budget, I can do that.
Well,
Whatever's helpful for you.
It's not the time, and I can always look at my town report, Julie, so if I'm the only one that would be useful for, or maybe it's premature.
No.
But it would be interesting to just see if the zero base is having us go higher or lower, what line items is that?
Yeah, I was going to present that in December after you've looked at each one, but I can start presenting that now. Sure. It's up to you. It's up to you.
Don't do it just for me.
No, the question that I asked was just based on what was it for 2020? And I know we didn't have a normal year, so I'm not expecting the numbers to be exactly the same. But
Right.
the point is, are we going to spend significantly more or less or about the same? So that's all I was looking for. And I should have done my homework and just looked it up myself.
No, and it's fine, and I can throw it in. I mean, it
No, I
depends
don't
on
think
how
you-
far you want to take that zero base.
No, I don't think you need to do that, Julie. It's just,
Okay.
a matter of curiosity on my
Okay.
part.
In December,
it is
after
gonna
you
show
have
up.
reviewed each department independent, in December, I'm going to give you everybody together, and then you're going to see it as it's going to present in the town report, which will
Sure.
be 2019 actual, 2020 actual, 2020 budget, 21 budget. So you'll see everything.
Really happy.
And then at that point, if we can say, okay, we've got some cuts we need to make, we go back to department heads, you need to cut a certain percentage or whatever. But this is more of just a review to say, starting from scratch, here's what we think we need.
Right.
Most departments at this point, except for 2, are down. I can tell you that.
Well, when we had the quarterly,
Yours is one of them.
when we had the quarterly review, that had all that information in there as far as how far down they were,
Correct.
what was up and stuff.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that was there. These
Yeah.
are just the worksheets for it, and
Right.
we will get that information when we
You
get
will,
to
but I
the
can give
second.
it to you at any point that you want.
Yep. No,
This is
this is
just a
fine.
trial year, so. yeah.
And I know it's not on here, and Julie's going to be giving it to you guys afterwards or whatever. I don't remember the exact figures, but the capital transfer for the fire department will be down this year from what it's been the last 2 years.
And that's something new, because we never used to break it down by department, but that just gives us a better idea of what each department is,
I think it's more transparent for everybody to know that what the capital money is being, where it's being spent.
Sure.
I mean, it's not like we're not gonna spend it, it's just, we need to know where
Where's
it's
it coming
coming.
from? Yeah, there's going,
Well, unless the voters and the citizens know how much an actual fire department takes to run.
Right.
And, or police department, I'm not big on fire, police department, whatever the department may be.
And you'll see a line added in for police as well. We've never done that for police, and there is a line in their budget as well for our capital transfer, because the cruiser is paid for through the capital.
Well, that's all, the cruiser's always been in here.
It's part of the capital plan, but it has not been, the transfer into capital has not been budgeted in the
Oh, I
police
see.
department budget.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so ours is going to be down this next year because our air pack replacement plan, we finished replacing all of our cylinders last year. So we just need to replace 2 air packs this year, and then I've got to do the numbers to make sure that we don't ever get behind again, but I think we're going to be at least 4 years before we need to start replacing stuff again, so we don't ever get into the having to replace them all at once again. But I think, if I remember correctly, after this year, we can take 4 years off from it, and then we have to start back.
And then it'll be spaced out.
Be spaced out again.
Manageable, so we could
Yes.
just, instead of going for a big lump sum like that.
Yep.
Is the use of foam, is that a policy thing now, or it's just required more? Because it
So
seems
foam
like-
gets used for almost everything, and the thing is at one point in time, we budgeted the full amount when we first started this. It was either 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, if it was 4 years ago, we budgeted the full amount, and that was fine. And then state statute changed that we could actually start charging for foam as long as it was a hazmat call. So we started billing for that. But in that state statute, you were allowed to bill for it, but you didn't have to pay it. So we would bill for it, and we would barely get reimbursed for any of the stuff, and the insurance companies could decide what they wanted to pay and not pay. And some insurance companies would pay. Most insurance companies have like a $500 cap that they'll pay on suppressant foam. Well, that's 4 pails of foam. And you're going to use, with the type of foam that we now use now in a structure fire, you're going to use anywhere from 10 to 12 pails of foam. So you're only getting reimbursed for a very small amount of it. That second year, we cut it in half. That was something David wanted to try. We cut in half and said, okay, well, hopefully we can get reimbursed for at least half of this foam. And we didn't get reimbursed anything that year, not a single cent of it. This year, this is when we were talking about trying to try to keep some spending out of this because we didn't know what was going to happen with COVID. We did not do our foam purchase this year. But like I explained to Julie, all it's going to take is, I mean, right now we're not spending it, but if we're getting into the fire season, you know, that could be something the last week in December, all of a sudden I don't have a choice but to buy, and you want to bulk buy it. If you bulk buy it, you don't pay any shipping on it. If you buy it individually, so anything less than a pallet, you pay anywhere from $25 to $35 per pail for shipping.
So after 4 buckets of foam, shut her down? That's not how it works?
That's all you get.
It's just, you know, the insurance companies have a huge influence on all these laws and rules and regulations that they put out there. And you do what you should do, and you do it, you know, you do what's right, say, protect property and life, and then they turn around and say, well, we're not going to pay for it.
Well, I mean, I will say it was a step in the right direction because there's barely anything that we're allowed to charge for. So, I mean, it was a step of, at least we can attempt to bill for this. You know, and house fires seem to be the hard part of getting reimbursed. And I know we went through this once before in select board meeting that I personally, unless you tell me you're going to fire me, I'm never going after a homeowner for their fire suppressant that I used on their thing after they just lost their house. You know, to me, it's whatever the insurance company pays. But at a regular hazmat call, so we have a TT unit that turns over or something like that, anything that we use there is all hazmat. Those insurance companies, they're all good about paying. We do get reimbursed for any of that stuff.
What about you, I'm sure there's instances you use it on brush fires?
Yes, that's becoming a huge thing, and actually we just did, it was while you were gone on vacation. The one that was, yeah, the one up on Clemens Road, that had been burning for over a week, and the caretakers found it when they got there to mow the lawn, and it had burned over 18 inches down into the ground. So things like that, you could be there for days. I mean, the total size of the fire was only about an acre, which isn't very big, but when it's 18 inches in the ground, you're there a long time, and the foam, that's kind of your end all. When you're done digging, you put foam over the top of it, hoping that that's going to take care of it and you don't have to go back. So.
Any other questions on the fire department?
I have one. I noticed under your equipment line item, you got PPE. Is that your turnout gear? Is that?
So that is just that's the oops, it got ripped out of call or whatever. That's not part of the replacement. So that's the 5,000 that we have put in there of the incidental. We don't know what's going to happen. Someone rips their gear, rips a boot, rips a glove, whatever it is that we're not planning on replacing that year.
Okay, so your bunker gear is out of capital?
That's on the capital replacement.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just want to thank our fire chief and our fire department for all the good work that they do. Not easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All set with the fire department? Thanks a lot, Matt. The next page I'm looking at is our ambulance department. You would think calls would be up because of COVID 2020, but they're down.
They're down.
Yeah, they're
So
down.
people are what, they're hesitating calling?
They don't want to go to the hospital, they're afraid of getting COVID.
At the very
That's-
beginning, people, that was a big issue with
It's just
COVID.
what it is.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we're about 45 to 50 calls down from last year at this point. But we aren't the only service. Every service in the state of Vermont, last I knew, was still down in calls volume. But, yeah.
Yeah.
We've had since Pittsburgh, last month we had 10 calls. That's unheard of. Going out at 10 calls anymore.
So, anyway, this was a tough year to start at zero base for us, for me anyway, because of being down and because of the fact that a lot of our supplies, if we can get it, is going up in price big time. I'm going to just give you, for instance, a little vial of epinephrine, 1 milliliter vial of epinephrine used to be $6.40. It's now $43. And now we cannot buy just a half a dozen of them. We have to buy them in a 25 pack.
At $46 a shot.
At $43
Times
a vial.
25.
Times 25.
And they have what?
And they expire in 6 months?
Yeah, and they expire, I think it goes a little longer than 6 months now. They've made it upwards of a year now. But that's just a for instance. Glucagon for diabetic emergencies used to be 140 some odd dollars, I think it was, for one dose. It's now upwards of $400.
Well, the pharmaceutical companies, they got to make some money somehow.
Oh, yeah.
Because I mean, if you can't make it on the medical end of it, on people's lives when they're suffering, when they need it most, when can you make it?
Right.
Amazing. That just,
It's unreal.
I get so upset when I hear something like that.
Yeah.
Do we have any ability to place orders with other towns and or hospitals, because that's what hospitals used to do, merge, and they merge and they get a better deal. Have you looked at doing anything like that?
The problem is the laws have changed now, and you get into being a distributor at that point. And that's why a lot of this buying in bulk, you can't break it down anymore. There's a lot of different statutes and laws now about it that you can't do it anymore. So to get into purchasing along with other departments, you're getting yourself into a liable situation.
And that's a state law or federal law?
I think it's kind of all federal stuff that's all coming down. Yep.
I wonder who is driving those laws.
Well, again, it gets back to, I know that there's good intention behind a law like that, but the impact on us as a
Yes.
small town is incredible. And
Oh, yes.
so it seems to me that if we start making some noise about it, nothing will change, but at least we'll feel better.
Right, right.
Matt?
Just speaking of some of the sales emergency equipment, almost all of the manufacturers since COVID has started has got rid of their bulk buy programs. So you're not getting deals anyway. So it's not even coming from the distributors. The distributors are not getting the deals that they used to get from the manufacturers.
I can't hear, sorry.
Oh,
Just repeat what he said. So he was just saying, Heather, that, you know, as somebody who deals with this line of work, I guess is what he said, distributors are now not getting bulk deals across the board. Did I send that up right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
thank you.
It's not the distributors not doing it. They're not getting the deal from the manufacturer.
Right. The distributors are not getting the deals from the manufacturers to pass on to their clients.
So anyway, we have, because of that, we used to buy from different distributors. We now buy a lot of our drugs that we need right through the hospital. And that seems to have helped out a little bit. We can get smaller amounts, but we're still being charged bigger amounts because they're being charged the bigger amounts. So they have to turn around and charge us the same thing.
Yeah, but if you don't have to buy 25
But I don't have to
whack,
buy 25 through that.
it's gotta be
Right.
some savings.
The other problem we have with other distributors now is during COVID here, and it still remains, they're doing what they call allocation. If you say, per se, order something that you haven't bought in the past, they will not sell it to you. Even though you are a customer of them, you haven't bought it in the past, so they won't sell it to you.
So how do you establish history of buying something if they won't?
That's the problem. Like, we just had protocol changes where we can now give certain medication, and that just started this year. We tried to get that medication through our distributor, and we couldn't get it. I explained to them that, hey, our protocols just changed. That's why we want to buy it now. We're going to buy it off you from now on. And they still wouldn't do it. So
it's getting more expensive to run
yes,
every year.
yes. And so anyway, I did cheat and go back a couple of years because of all of that. And just trying to weigh the two, zero base plus what we have done in the past. This year also, we have cut way back on everything else because, like my equipment, I've only spent, what, $815 at this point out of what was budgeted as $10,000 just because of COVID, and we did not know what was going to be happening. Yeah. So that's not a realistic figure because there was things that we could have been purchasing right along that we haven't purchased. So what I did, one of the equipment too, I think it was $10,000 I had last year. I wanted to put over and start utilizing the uniform line. I put 1,500 of that equipment into the uniform line. I've been buying the shirts that we use as uniforms through my equipment, and now I've got it allocated under uniforms. And then in the equipment line, last week when Julie and I were talking, 8,500 for the normal is what I want in there, but we also talked about the radios and the tactical gear. We were talking about I needed to add some more money in for the radios and the equipment to outfit our tactical gear for.
Yep, and I forgot to change the number.
Yes, so
We
I
had
need
negotiated through
another
that.
8,000 just for this coming year added to that 8,500. That's to purchase all the equipment for instance, mass shootings, schools and stuff. Have to buy multiple tourniquets, a lot of hemostatic gauzes. There's a lot of stuff. I need 6 radios to outfit. Right now we have 3 people trained to go in, but we're going to soon have 2. They wanted to take a course, but all courses got canceled during COVID, so now those other 2 are going to be taking it as soon as we find one. So, but I've got 6 outfits for tactical gear, but now I got to outfit everything. So,
And this is thing that we were going to put in the budget, but this is something that one of the VLCT grants
Yeah,
may
we
help
may
pay
be able
for,
to.
but they don't open up again until next year. So we'll try to get funding and not spend it through the line item. But we needed to have coverage just in case.
just in case.
So,
Because it'd be a shame to have all that tactical gear sitting there and train people to go in and nothing for equipment. So, other than that, it's pretty much cut and dry, I think, unless there's any questions.
Any board members, questions? Concerns? Heather, Lee?
Yeah, looks good to me.
Well,
Thank you.
it's Heather. In some ways, you know, like there are just some effects of COVID and cost issues that you're just never going to control. So it is what it is.
That is
Yeah,
correct.
It's sad that we're getting to that point, though. It is what it is. I agree with you, Heather, but when they start price gouging, raising the price of something like, it's amazing.
It's crazy. And then the government is saying we have to have X amount, you know, we're regulated and yet we aren't given a break. Anyways, that's a whole other story.
Yep.
But I also don't want that to be reflective on Dan, you know, or the department, because there are times when, you know, things are just not good.
No,
Right.
totally agree.
Again, I can't give you enough thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I
concerns?
did owe Lee. I should have said that before I got upset about the situation.
I don't blame you, I get upset.
You're well
Manny will tell me
appreciated for what
something
you-
and I'll
What
go.
you guys do for this town. It's really appreciated, and hopefully with your new digs, that's going to work out pretty well.
You gonna talk?
I think our biggest thing is the fingerprint machine. When the state police reduced from 2 to 1, when they, Brattleboro and Rockingham confirmed in Westminster Barrack, we borrowed theirs. It's getting very old. We used to pay $4,500 for like a insurance policy to protect anything that went bad on it. They will not give that to us. The company won't do that anymore. So eventually we're going to have to replace that. So we're hoping for some grant work to do that. But in the meantime, we're still using it and it's still working. So.
Well, so that insurance policy, that was $4,500 a year?
Yes,
And that covered,
everything.
it would replace the machine?
Yes, it would replace the machine. It would, they would come service it once a year. They looked at it. Just the fingerprint reader itself, the scanner, is like $10,000. So,
So now that you probably need the insurance policy, they figure,
yeah,
We're
now
not
it's
gonna
too,
give it to
now
you.
it's too old. We're going to actually use it, well, then they won't give it to you.
So they drop out now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're not budgeting anything. We're gonna just see
wing
what
it.
happens and drag it out for as long as we can.
So, other than that, there's any questions? I mean, overtime, one thing we do have, I mean,
Yeah.
we have to cover the shifts. I mean, if we have guys out on, or sick or on vacation or anything, we have to cover the shifts that we can't. We try to run light, but it doesn't always happen.
That's one of those things you really don't have much control over. You have to have so many people on the street or wherever, and if somebody's on vacation or someone's sick, you have to cover it.
But some of the plans are, you know, if all of a sudden Jeff is well, we won't use Jeff. If Will is working, I'm sorry, I just don't want to create a problem.
Right.
So if Will is working and, you know, he's on a call that all of a sudden today he had to work 12 hours, well, you know, maybe Friday, you know, Will's not working, he's working up to 40 hours, and then a lot of the guys have said, you know, I don't necessarily care about the overtime, I'll go home early, and maybe we get part-time coverage. So there has been some of those instances that we've been trying to, because it's cheaper. Cheaper to bring in a part-timer to fill a shift than it is to pay overtime. So
the problem is-
sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't.
It does, but the problem is right now, it's the same as any law enforcement. We can't get part-timers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That want to work. And then you have a weekend like this last weekend where, I mean, I was in over 20 hours just on the weekend trying to help cover stuff, so you never know what's gonna happen, so.
Crazy week or two.
Yeah, last 2 weeks have been crazy.
Yes.
And we have to do budgets with the best knowledge as we can, with the experience we have. But, I mean, that's why I think our auditor has suggested that we have a reserve fund too, because there are things that you just can't predict in budgeting.
That's right.
Correct.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, continue working, yeah.
The other thing that's really, everything's kind of down a little bit if you compare, but equipment kind of stayed the same. We're going to have some new stuff in the new building. When we move everything over to the new evidence room, there's some stuff that we have to do by statute with a separate drugs, separate other evidence. So we're going to need a separate program or whatever, computer program, just to try to regulate and keep that separate and stuff. But,
yeah.
So there's a few things that we're going to need in the new building that we don't have here. But.
And all these budgets, police, fire, and ambulance do include, you'll see a few lines up, like computer, like telephone, some of those, because this first year, there's additional stuff that is needed, and these budgets carry that for the new building as well, so.
Questions, concerns on the police department budget?
Thank you, Rick.
Well, good opportunity. Thank you, Rick, and your crew for all the good things you do for Chester.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rick. So the next item on the agenda,
I think you guys can go. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
that's it, huh?
Good night, guys.
Okay, good.
All I know is she says she can see that there's a problem.
Okay.
I'm waiting for that answer.
Okay.
A little more specific.
Okay.
The next item is discussion about the acoustic panels with Town Hall. I know we've gone through this, and the company's coming next week to do the sound system.
We're hoping. Everything is, all the equipment is supposed to be in for an installation next week. If you approve the acoustic panels, it'll delay it a week because they've got to get those in. Those are not on order yet. So I always just think about mobility costs with projects. It's the same company. There is the money available in the budget this year. If you wanted to go ahead and do the acoustic panels with this sound system, this portable sound system that they're doing, we could get that piece all done at one time.
What's your recommendation?
Mine?
Yes.
I would really like for you to approve the acoustic panels.
Okay. Well, it seems to me that if we're going to be paying a double mobilization cost for them to come down and do it, we might as well, if the money's available, we might as well have them do it all at once.
Well, and the thing that he said too is when they do the acoustic panels, we have to completely clear out this room. And something to do with when they do the sound analysis as they're putting them up. And so, if we all of a sudden now have all the equipment installed, and then in January you approve the budget, and in February we're going to have to clean it all out again. And so it's just kind of like let's just do it and bite the bullet, get it done. Like I said, we have the money in this budget. It would just be nice to do it and get it done.
Are these ones that hang from the ceiling?
They don't, well, they're on the top of the wall and the ceiling. So where the wall and the ceiling meet, they don't suspend down. They hang flush to the ceiling. They kind of blend, they're supposed to blend in with the wall and the ceiling as much as possible.
And
He knows that aesthetics are a concern of mine, so. you know,
That's kind of what I was
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
at, so
yeah.
thank you.
yeah, yeah,
Because it looks so great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, we've done a lot of beautiful work and it's looking so much better. So that was just my thought. However, great acoustics will be good too.
it would be. And, you know, there's some other things we can do, you know, as you guys probably remember, you know, the Historical Society had donated some items to hang. And my understanding is those are, you know, getting close to being ready. And if we know where those are going to go and how they're going to hang, Nate had said, you know, you can also hide those, you know, in and amongst that artwork that's mounted on the walls, and that helps and you can't see. So there's some creative things we can do with the panels too, but most of them are going to go along the ceiling.
Along the edges.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's aware, you know, they've been in the Legion Great Room there. We had to put them in there. You couldn't hear each other talking
Right.
this close,
Yeah.
you know, and we actually, we had like 2 installments. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was, and it doesn't look bad, so.
Do you want a motion, Julie?
Yes, you should do a motion because it's an unbudgeted expense.
And out of what fund, where's the money coming from?
I forget what I told you. The revitalization budget.
Okay, yeah. So Heather, you making a motion? Heather, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, well, I can't find the mute button now. I'd like to make a motion to give Julie permission to buy acoustic panels for the town hall.
For the amount of $12,000 coming from the revitalization budget.
Thank you for completing my motion.
So Heather's the motion. Do I hear a second? Lee Dakin's a second. Any further discussion? The only thing I hope that they know what they're doing. I mean, you know, because like Heather was saying, they've done such a nice job on this town hall, and it looks so nice. I don't just want to start seeing a whole bunch of holes everywhere and panels hanging or falling off and things like. Is there some kind of guarantee that comes with this process?
I don't know. I can certainly find out.
Yeah.
Yep, I will find out. And I can also ask for, as you were just saying that, I was thinking, I could also ask for some examples or pictures of other places they have done.
Sure.
And just kind of, you know, get a visual.
Yeah, and
you know,
if you want to send us an email with some pics or something, just so it's not, we don't want it slaughtered.
No,
you know?
exactly. Yep, absolutely. I can do that. I'll do that before I hire him to do it. Yeah.
Any more discussion on this? Any more questions?
Well, and I would trust Julie's judgment on that too, you know.
Yeah. All those in favor of the motion, as stated, please say aye.
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 No one opposed? Anybody opposed? Nope. Great. New sound system, acoustic panels, and our Wi-Fi might be working next time too. Hanging in there right now, it's still working.
It is.
Next item on our agenda is CDL policy adoption. Julie, can you take us through that, please?
I can. So I had a meeting a little bit ago with Wade Mashur from VLCT. There has been some old guidance and some new guidance on CDL policies and how we are supposed to be managing our employees that have CDLs. The new guidance has kind of forced review of towns whether or not they're following the old guidance. We are a town that has not been following the old guidance. We are not alone. There are many who have not. But the bottom line is, they are now out and about reviewing towns, randomly auditing their CDL procedures. And there are several towns that are getting fined large sums of money for not being in compliance. So we're going to get into compliance.
This is the state that does
This
the
is the state
regulations?
and the feds. This is both. This is governed both. So the very first step is the policy. This is a policy that was drafted, created by VLCT. I have tweaked it, modified it so it fits Chester, and what we specifically have for CDL drivers. Jim has looked at this. Once this policy is adopted, the other stuff we're going to start in January, which VLCT agrees with, which is kind of that annual maintenance stuff that we need to do. You know, CDL drivers are supposed to have driver background checks. There's some self-assessment stuff they're supposed to do every year. We do the random drug testing. That is something we have always done. But there is a new way of reporting that. There's a clearinghouse now that we have to go to. And that is a way that the clearinghouse can find out that you are not doing what you're supposed to do. When these self-assessments and stuff are done annually, I need to go into that clearinghouse and check that we have done that procedure. So the first step is the policy. Once you guys adopt the policy, each CDL holder will get a copy of the policy, will sign off that they've received it so that they will know the procedures. And it's not much, there's not a lot here that should affect anybody differently. The big piece that's going to be different for the guys is that we have to do those DMV background checks every year. But they're you know, drug testing, all that's going to be the same procedure that we have always done. This policy sets forth, and we have never run into this in this town, but this policy sets forth a procedure of if one of those drug tests comes back positive. That would be, right now, that's not spelled out for our CDL holders. And this spells it out.
Is this an updated version?
17 of the policy that you made up.
What was that?
We're looking at page 16 and page 17. That's going to be the current policy.
Page 16 and 17 is the acknowledgement forms that the board, that they will, well, the 16 is the acknowledgement form that they have received a copy of the policy.
These are for the employees.
For the employee, the CDL holder, yes. And yes, Jeff, this is the most up-to-date that VLCT has given
Okay,
me.
because I remember signing one of these, and I don't know how long ago
I don't know, I
it was.
couldn't find any record of a CDL policy in this town anywhere.
No, well, I'm pretty sure that we did at one time.
Maybe years ago.
When we all changed over to the CDLs.
That was a while ago.
Maybe.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but I do remember
Yeah.
we did this, but I don't know, obviously.
I went-
They've obviously updated it for
Yeah.
different drugs and how
Yeah.
much and stuff, so.
Yeah.
There used to be a time when you didn't even need a CDL to work for a town.
Yeah. Right.
I worked up in Wyndham, I was just grandfathered in. You said, go for it.
Yep.
Yep, yep.
So this is just to keep everything on track, follow the regulations, up to date with an accounting of everything. We're doing the procedures, we've already been doing everything, we just have to make sure that we file it in the right place.
Yep.
And keep track of things, basically.
Correct.
So we need a motion to adopt this policy.
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
Jeff's the
I'll
motion.
second it.
Lee's second, to adopt the Town of Chester drug and alcohol policy for commercial motor vehicle operators. Any further discussion on this?
Just have a question, and that is, Julie, do you have any idea what the additional cost will be to the town for implementing this?
Well, the DMV license, there shouldn't be any.
Right.
The
All the
DMV license,
testing
no,
and-
the DMV license check, I believe, is courtesy
Okay.
to municipalities. So there should be no additional fee. The CDLs the drug testing we already do.
Right.
The only real expense is going to be additional labor,
Okay.
the labor piece. But that should be about it.
Okay.
There shouldn't be an increased
That'll be
expense.
next year, they'll give us a fee to be a part of this.
Thank you.
Here, Arnie.
Any other questions on, or comments before we vote? All right, all those in favor of approving this Town of Chester drug and alcohol policy for commercial motor vehicle operators, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Nope. all set.
Yeah. Okay.
If it is reading 1,000 on your speed, then the router's the issue. If it's reading below that, then it's the line.
Okay. Did you hear that?
You guys repeat that?
Oh, that was just giving me instructions on testing the router tomorrow.
We had an
That's all.
on-call telephone conversation with VTEL, and they were giving some suggestions on how to deal with the router problem. It's either the router or a cable coming in.
Right, yeah.
Great, thank you.
I keep forgetting about you guys out there. I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna let you, Arnie.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short break for a couple of minutes, and we'll be right back.
We're on hold for 1 second.
Getting there. It's supposed to get warmer every day. Sweet.
I know.
And I'm okay with that. You're going to go biking this weekend, aren't you?
I'm going
It's
tomorrow.
supposed to be gorgeous.
I'm going tomorrow. Yeah, but I work all weekend, so.
Nice. You don't get many chances like this.
Nope. Yeah, I want to talk to you too, so.
It made, I don't know, he just made me sound like unplug the wire coming in
And plug it into the computer.
and then plug it into the computer. Or
And
plug
check
the
it and
computer
see if you
into
have
the,
your-
yeah. We'll mess with it tomorrow. We can get detail on the phone to help us if we need to. We'll try it.
Okay, everybody's back on board. Next item on our agenda is our wayfinding plan and signage color selection.
Okay,
Now,
I'm gonna trump
before you
this.
say anything, I don't know why we're making a decision on this, but go ahead, Julie.
All right, so the Master Plan Implementation Committee, who has been working on the wayfinding plan, has come to kind of a division when it comes to the color. Please do not look at the blue that is up there. I'm going to hand you around the swatch of the correct blue. It's going to be hard for you ladies to see. That blue that is up there is really light. The color is actually Newburyport. We're having trouble with the blue printing out appropriately. But you're going to try to hold that in front of the camera. Maybe they can see it. It's a much.
Can we to see it tomorrow?
You could stop in and see it tomorrow, yeah?
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
Okay, so, I don't know, can you see that? It's a really dark, it's really almost like a true classic navy. I can also send you, I can email you the link that has, on the image on my computer looks great. As soon as you put it on this screen, it looks black. So I can't do that. But anyway, the reason we're here. So there has been a division about, can you see that, Amy? About the color. Half the committee wants green because, and the argument is, their justification for it is, it's traditional. Then there are others who don't like the green because it's traditional. So the committee finally here, Arnie, this is the blue, I'm gonna pass that around. We wanted a color that is classic, is timeless, represents kind of the historic nature and character of Chester. The green certainly does that, but there was some there were some comments issued from people in the community that feels that it's just a traditional Vermont green. And then there are some who like it because it's a traditional Vermont green.
So when you say traditional for Chester or traditional for?
Traditional for the state.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of people that like, yeah, it's green, it's Vermont.
My only point is, we've put up some of these historical signs, different locations, the railway station.
Correct, and they are
North
green.
Street,
Yep,
the Historical Society.
yep,
And it's green.
yep, it's the Essex green.
So
Yep.
why would we change it? If we want it to be cohesive,
Those
I
signs,
personally don't care, but
Yep.
that's just the point.
those signs are kind of, they're the state historic signs. I think the thought on switching to a different color was something that is unique to Chester. That is different than if you go into Grafton or if you go into another town. There's a lot of Vermont towns who have the traditional green. The argument was wanting to have Chester be a different color, which is fine, but then the discussion was, but it needs to be a color that is timeless. You know, we don't want to be changing the color of our signs 20 years from now. So it needs to be a color that is classic and timeless. So
we can't do fuchsia?
no, you can't. You cannot. So these are the two colors, the Newburyport blue, the Essex green, and the committee is shifting it to you.
Well,
Because the signage is really a decision of the board.
well, you could argue that in a few different ways. Because the master plan, the implementation committee with their members have decided that they can't decide. So they're pushing it to us to make a decision. And our choice is we make a decision, we don't make a decision, or we push it back to them.
Well,
So it's up to the preference of the board on how they want to proceed on this.
my 2 cents, I like them both. My preference is probably the blue, just so it would stand out and not blend into the other signs that the state puts up.
Yep.
But on the other hand, then it's different than what everything else is, and is that going to be a timeless statement, or is that something?
Make a motion for what?
Navy, Lee, you have a very good point, you like the navy. My opinion is it doesn't matter, it's not life altering, either both are nice. But if you want navy, let's go for navy.
Well, you didn't let me finish my statement.
Sorry.
Again, the point is that I don't think that it matters what color it is. You know, if we were intent on making Chester stand out from the surrounding community in a way that was unique to Chester, that might be one way of doing it, but I'm not sure that's going to have a huge impact on bringing visitors into town because we have a navy sign instead of a green sign. Honestly, I don't care. I do like the blue. I have a preference for blue, but that doesn't mean that that's what I would vote for.
would this be used, go ahead, Lee.
Well, no, go ahead, Arnie.
I just had a quick question. It was gonna, would the blue color or whatever color is picked, you'd be used on the signs where you're coming into town also?
Yes, all of the new Town of Chester signs. So these are what the gateway signs would look like. And then down here, the Chester Depot Village Green. Visitor information is, we are hoping, is being replaced with Shop, Dine, Stay. That is what we're fighting with the Information Council about. Those are your signs of what they're going to look like throughout town. And so all of the new signs phased in over time, the gateways and the directionals, and you'll be looking at the wayfinding plan at your next meeting, the actual plan itself, where all the different type of signs go. They're all going to be the same color. So there's going to be one theme throughout Chester.
So
The state signs would stand out as state signs.
So will the state signs and our signs be adjacent to each other, or? would they-
Not really, no. Those are at historic properties, so they won't be accomplishing the same goal.
Lee, go ahead, Lee.
So I had some thoughts about that, and seeing these signs today reminds me of being in Polk yesterday and looking at our really beautiful restoration of the town hall. And the main sign, I think it's 1824 or something, that's kind of on an inset right over the top of right under the roof, right as you look straight on, is that shade of green. And then there are two signs on either side, which was noticed to me by someone who was standing with me. Boy, those could really be used to be painted again. They're kind of washing away. But that's also the same green. So I think I like the green. I like to stay with what we use already in our town on our special signs. Just a thought.
Well,
But take a look at the town hall when you walk into it.
Yep, and we've actually had kickback on the green signs because our trucks are blue. So we have actually had people who have asked us to paint those signs blue.
Well, I will tell you,
Never ending.
I will
never
tell you,
ending.
when I started working here, our trucks were green.
Were they green originally?
They were green when
There you
I
go.
started.
I wonder when we changed to blue. I don't know.
It just,
Julie, what do you want?
Oh my gosh.
the only thing is the historic signs are green.
Yeah.
And so if people are looking for information in Chester, if they're looking for the same color signs, they may just register a little better for them. But
Yeah.
I really don't care. I like the blue.
I like.
I kind of think a little difference if it's different, a difference brings the eye to something that's a little different.
My only thought about the blue, I like them both because I like the classic feel and look of the green. I like not that blue. I like the Newburyport blue, that navy-ish. When they showed us some pictures in the wayfinding plan of the green signs against some images where the trees are in bloom in the summer. And they kind of wash into that, which is kind of why I liked the idea of a blue that was kind of a contrast. But I love them both. I mean, either one that is chosen will be a beautiful sign for Chester. I mean, so I'm partial to the blue, but that is just me.
Well, when you first showed us these things, immediately I went to the blue for my preference because we have so much gorgeous green all over this town. And I agree with the thoughts that the person said, they're just kind of going to get lost in the greenery of our town.
Yeah.
May not be as visible. So, and I really do like blue a lot.
And it's not neon yellow or anything. There's
No.
fuchsia.
No.
I mean,
And let me, I'm going to try to email you that image so that you two on your computers could see it. You guys can see the dark blue. And maybe you don't care that much.
We can trust you. I mean,
Oh my gosh.
I'm fine with anything, Julie.
All right.
I think both options are fine. I kind of go towards the blue, and I thought that that was what Lee was saying before I unmuted and spoke over him. But I don't think this decision needs to be, I don't think it needs to be painstaking.
It's getting there.
Oh, my word, yeah, the meeting with the master plan was, we've been back and forth with color for a while. Yeah.
So what do we need to do? Make a motion or just
I
recommendation?
don't,
Make a motion that we decide on the blue, and you guys can say yea or nay.
So Heather is a motion that we go with the blue. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Second.
Lee Gustafson is the second on that motion. Any further discussion? I don't pick colors at home. I don't pick colors on anything to do with painting anything, so. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor of the motion of picking the new, what is it, blue?
Newburyport blue.
Newburyport blue for all the new wayfaring signs for Chester, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.
So we had Lee, Heather, and who else?
I said aye.
Heather, you're muted.
Oh,
Jeff?
okay, I said aye.
Jeff, you said yes?
Yes.
And Heather? Lee, you said, did you say anything? No?
I said aye.
Oh, okay, so we have 4 ayes, and anybody opposed?
It's not for me.
Motion
You're just
passes.
chicken, you're just backing out of that one.
Had nothing to do with it. You got
I
that?
just think we should really celebrate this accomplishment.
They're gonna be beautiful signs. I agree. I mean, you can go with either one, and they're gonna look fantastic.
Yeah.
They really
Yeah,
are.
yeah, the Newburyport.
We got blue trucks, we got blue signs, and we have a lot of greenery all over the place, so.
As long as we
I think
don't
it's
change the
good.
color of the trucks, we're fine.
They're all gonna be Newburyport blue. Just kidding.
All right.
Well, that was painful.
It's getting late.
Housekeeping to sign a cemetery deed. Is this the original?
Nope, here.
I was gonna suggest burgundy or something, so that's.
Well, I will tell you, at the very,
was one of them, wasn't
at the very beginning, burgundy and cream was an option, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful sign. But we also took into consideration the fact of all of the plantings that are done around town, and where the signs are gonna go, there are plantings around some of them, and there was a fear of clashing with the flowers.
Can't
So-
have that.
That was the depth of our conversations.
Don't tell anybody how this decision of the select board came about. All the people on the plan, it's done, the people on the design committee.
Yes,
It's all on tape.
it's all on tape.
We flipped the coin. That's right.
New business, items for future agendas.
We have a cemetery, oh, you did a cemetery deed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all.
So your next meeting on the 18th will have Parks and Rec will be on there for your budgets. I was going to have the police policy adoption for the complaints, but we'll see how far we get with the procedures piece. That may not make it to the next agenda. The actual wayfinding plan, and you will have the blue signs in it so you can see them, will be on the next agenda. And Ron and I are starting the work on the reserve fund policy. So I'm hoping to have that for November 18th. He's a little tied up, so it's a matter of him getting to the parts that he needs to. But if it doesn't come in the 18th, it'll be the first meeting in December.
I don't know if it's up to us to deal with this or not, but I'm sure everybody's seen the trucks parking down by the new Jiffy Mart.
Yep.
We have no parking signs up. It's technically state highway. And if we give them parking tickets are only, it's only 25 bucks. But I'm just wondering if we could talk to the state or whatever, and maybe put posts there so they can't park there.
This is the new Jiffy Mart?
Yeah.
Yeah, that, where the.
Yep, and they're making a mess, and it's not safe.
Exactly.
I don't know if we can put posts in there or something to deter them, because the no parking signs aren't doing it.
So
Plus, it's weird. Look what it's doing to the ground there.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's not safe. We brought this up before. I thought there were signs of no parking. They're hardly visible.
Right, they're there,
But I
but,
thought was, no parking, and then they, as you head further into town, they take the, it says, okay, that, end no parking. But thank you, Jeff. I think this is a really important thing we need to do to keep trucks from parking there.
So is that our jurisdiction or the state's jurisdiction?
well, that's
It's
what,
state.
that's,
I'll reach
it's
out to
state
Mark.
highway.
Yeah, I'll
So-
reach out to Mark Pickering, who is the District 2.
The thing I was thinking of is that they put a curb there,
That,
you know,
Oh, yeah.
put a 18-inch retaining wall there or something that would stop that.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Mark tomorrow.
Thank you.
And our town crew has gone in the past, since that's been happening, since that Jiffy Mart was built, and cleaned up that space, and tried to smooth it over and do this and that, but it only takes a couple of times to ruin it.
Yeah, and there's quite a hole there where there was some water. And I'm actually kind of worried about what they're doing to the drainage pipes underneath, or even the wastewater pipe.
Yeah.
So,
getting down there.
so,
Julie, you'll look into that.
I will talk to Mark Pickering tomorrow. Yep, absolutely.
How about the old Jiffy Mart?
So Tony Carnes and I have had some conversations. We're trying to figure out the value of the property, and that is the piece that he is working on. So he is, there are conversations taking place.
Great.
Yep.
Even removal of that sign?
Well, I kind of threw that out there, and he said, let me talk to my son. I kind of expressed, geez, it would be really helpful if we could get that down. And that was the response. So the next time I talk to him, it's not an easy conversation to have with him.
Sure.
He's a little bit difficult to talk with. So the next conversation, I will keep bringing it up. But
We
we've
can
talked
make that-
several times.
We can make that sign disappear.
Wouldn't take much.
I'm not going to respond.
It's on tape. Any other items for future agendas?
no, I just have a comment on, I don't know if everybody's been paying attention, but the old bank, which is going to be a dentist office, and the old pizza place, they're going right along in there. I've had, as the water superintendent, been working with them and stuff, but both of them plan on being open the first of the year, so
Nice.
that'll be a nice addition to our business.
Absolutely.
That's a great use of those two buildings.
Absolutely.
The pizza place has been empty for a
Long
long
time.
time.
He just wanted way too much money.
No,
No.
Old Zachary's Pizza, Lee.
Oh, yeah, that's right, that's gonna be a
Veterinary clinic.
A vet.
veterinary clinic, yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Yep.
I've noticed a lot of activity at the old Baba Louie's also. From the appearance, it looks like showings because it is on the market, but who knows?
No. I've heard a little scuttlebutt here and there, but nothing
Yeah.
concrete.
Any other items for future agenda? No? All set? Last item on the agenda,
I move we adjourn.
Jeff's a motion,
Second.
Lee's a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.